2020 has the potential to be an amazing year for football boots, especially with the Euro happening this summer. So with that in mind, I want to go over the top 5 most anticipated football boot releases of 2020. Puma. They're a brand that exists. 2019 was an extremely busy year for the Puma brand. They finally brought back the King series with the Puma King Platinum, which is an excellent, very underrated pair of football boots. And they released 3 generations each of the Puma 1 and the Puma Future lines, with the latest variations of both of those boots recently coming out basically within the last month. So I don't think that we're due for anything brand new from Puma in early 2020, but I think it's safe to say that sooner rather than later, we're going to get something new from Puma. The question is, what will that be? Personally, I don't see them doing anything with the King Platinum, but the 1 and the Future line is where I think they could maybe make some big changes, mainly based on the fact that we've had several generations of both boots now. And I would say it's safe to say that over the last 2 years or so, there has been a major decline in popularity with both of those lines, even though I think the boots are currently better than they ever have been given their respective concepts. However, I think there's definitely a demand, especially from the Puma brand, for something that is more of a true speed boot, because I think you can kind of classify the Future and the 1 as speed boots, but they're not as focused in as some of the other speed boots on the market, which I think is why vast majority of consumers are maybe a little bit confused on what Puma currently has on offer. I think something along the lines of what they used to do with the Evo Speed line might be the direction that they go into, or we might just get more generations of the Future and the 1 building upon this concept where, honestly, I don't know that there's anywhere else for them to go. Regardless, I'm excited to see what they do. Nike is a brand that typically runs their boots on a 2-year life cycle, meaning that from when the boots come out, you can probably expect the replacement to come out 2 years from that point. But they recently broke that cycle with the introduction of the latest generation of Nike Mercurial that came about 6 to 8 months sooner than expected. Either way, what is coming up on the normal 2-year life cycle is the Nike Phantom Vision line, which is a boot that came out replacing the Magista series that was struggling from a sales perspective, and the Phantom Vision, quite frankly, didn't do much better, if not actually did worse. I think that makes sense. With that said, the Phantom Vision was and still is a fantastic pair of football boots, being the first from the Nike brand to introduce their quad fit technology, which is basically an internal sock made out of a special material that's still super soft and flexible, but with the laces tied tight, it does a really good job of locking your foot in place and providing a much more responsive feel than you might expect from a boot that doesn't really have any hard structure to the upper, allowing for really arguably the most sock-like sensation you can get from any pair of football boots without sacrificing performance. From an objective standpoint, I think the Phantom Vision is really good, but part of the poor response, I think, has been down to the fact that a lot of people just don't like the way that the boot looks. Now, based on what we've seen on pros' feet in training, it does look like Nike is going to release a Phantom Vision 2, but because the boot looks so similar, it's very difficult for me to say where the progression is going to be with the evolution of the Phantom Vision line. The boot still appears to have the signature lace cover of the Phantom Vision, where you have an external layer of Flyknit and obviously an internal quad fit system, and that's really going to be the important part of this evolution, in my opinion. Are they going to change up the quad fit system, or is it simply going to be a slight refresh to the upper and basically the same overall experience? That's more or less what I'm expecting, but Nike is full of surprises when it comes to brand new boots. I think that texture is probably going to play a huge role in the Phantom Vision 2, even more so than it has been on the original. But until I actually have the boots in my hands and get to see what they've done internally with their quad fit technology, it's really difficult to say what these are going to be like. It's now 2020 and Nike still has 2 boots bearing the Phantom name, the Phantom Vision and the Phantom Venom. The Phantom Venom being the replacement for the Nike Hyper Venom line that a lot of people were sad to see go, but I think what Nike basically created with the Phantom Venom Elite was an evolution of what the Hyper Venom line was turning into anyway. So the name change was just a name change rather than a concept change like we saw from Magista to Phantom Vision. Either way, the Phantom Venom is an excellent pair of football boots that doesn't really have a ton of room for improvement, if I'm being honest. The question is, are we going to get a new version of the Phantom Venom in 2020? It wouldn't necessarily make sense given Nike's normal 2-year cycle, but it looks like they're breaking that. So something is, I think, going to happen with the Phantom Venom line this year. And rumor has it that it's more likely to die than to see a brand new generation. Of course, this information is just a rumor at this point, but I would be curious to know what Nike is going to do with this line, because I think that they're probably going to try to get away from having 2 Phantoms. It just hasn't done that well for them up until this point. And while I would love to see an evolution of the Phantom Venom, kind of bringing back the power boot concept to a certain extent, I would also like to see Nike do something completely different and never been done before, because typically when they've done that in the past, we end up with something pretty special. It could also be something super gimmicky and dumb, but something special is possible, and I'd like to see what Nike would do with a blank slate. And just out of curiosity, what would you guys rather see? A Phantom Venom 2 or something completely new entirely? Now, unlike Nike, Adidas has been running their boots on a life cycle of about 9 to 12 months, which means that in 2020, it's entirely possible that we could get a new generation of all 4 silos, which is exciting on its own. But what they're going to do with the X line is something that I'm particularly excited about. Of course, that is their Speed Boot series, which was the replacement for the F50. And throughout 2019, what we saw a lot of from the Adidas brand is callbacks to their vast history of incredible football boots. Obviously old Predator remakes, but we also saw some remakes of the F50 series, which is probably in the modern era the most popular line from the Adidas brand, even more so than the Preds. So my question for Adidas in 2020, and maybe what I'm hoping for, is that instead of getting an X20 to follow the lineage, we might see a return of the F50. And I guess to be realistic, if Adidas did decide to change the X back to F50, what the final product would end up being would likely just be an evolution of what they were already doing with the X line anyways, kind of like what we saw when Ace turned into Predator. It was just a continuation of what they were doing to Ace and more of a name change than anything. Either way, I think there would be a ton of people that would get super excited simply based on a name change, and I'm hopeful that Adidas would do something very interesting for the return of the F50 name. Something lightweight, something thin, maybe even something laceless that we've never seen from the F50 series. I'm always curious to see what Adidas has up their sleeve next when it comes to speed boots, because they really had a huge part in how football boots have evolved since 2010 with that original Adidas F50 Adizero. And if they could do something like that again, I think it could do really well. It'd also be pretty cool to see Messi wearing F50s again. For those of you that regularly watch my videos, you know that I have not been a big fan of the return of the Predator. It was a very exciting moment in football boot history, but unfortunately the return of the Predator was, like I said earlier, kind of just an evolution of the Ace line and yet another sock boot with really not much interesting happening. There's nothing about the Predator that really harkens back to what the Predator series was in the first place. A power boot with a leather upper, with rubber striking elements, with an aggressive stud pattern. That's what the Predator series was all about, and at this very moment, it's not that. But based on what we've seen some pros training in, it looks like the Predator series is going to be getting a lot more aggressive in 2020, which is something that I am personally very excited about. If you've been on social media, you've probably seen the leaks. I can't show them to you, but I have seen them, and trust me when I say I'm very excited to give these new boots a go. The Predator might actually be back for real this time. I'm not sure that this is likely to happen, but I wasn't expecting a brand new Mercurial so early into 2019, so I guess it's entirely possible that come the Euro this summer, we could get a brand new generation of Mercurial again, which is always exciting because the Mercurial series is the most popular boot line on the market and has been for a very long time now. But as I've talked about in pretty much all my wrap-up videos for 2019, I think that the Vapor 13 Elite and the Superfly 7 Elite right now are pretty much as good as a Mercurial has ever been, and seemingly the maximum of what they can achieve with the Flyknit concept. So how they would evolve what they currently have into something better is something that I am personally very excited about, and I just don't know where they're gonna go from here. So if something new were to come out in 2020, I think people would be super excited about a new generation of Mercurial. I doubt it though. Anyways guys, that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, please support it with a like. What are you most excited about in 2020 as far as football boot releases go? Leave that down below in the comments. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I'll do my best to get an answer out to you. If you aren't subscribed already, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.